Welcome to another Realm Show. My name is Chris Biesterfeld. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight, this morning, wherever you are in the realm. Thank you for joining me. Tonight we have Lewis Hanna from BluntClarity Podcast. If you don't know him, he has done some amazing interviews with some amazing guests. I just really want to talk to him, get to know him. Lewis, thank you for being here. How are you today?
Very good, sir. Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Oh, thank you. Well, I guess we should probably just start just talking about how I actually caught wind of you. You were interviewing a good friend of mine, Guy Anderson, and so immediately I became a fan of yours. Anybody a friend of Guy's is a friend of mine. So how did that all start?
Yeah, so that was from me. I think that was after I interviewed Gareth Ike, and Guy kind of, there was a lot of overlap, going down the more conspiracy route and stuff like that. Guy has a unique perspective for sure. And people who want to, I generally, I'm not going to agree with everyone and stuff. And, that's the case for most people. But if you're willing to question things, if you're willing to think outside the box, then yeah, I'm more than happy to talk to these type of people. Guy, yeah, very, very interesting chap.
Yeah, I do too. I'm more of an outside the box kind of guy. How did you get into this whole realm of podcasting? And I mean, you're a pretty young guy. You seem like you've had a pretty good career so far. Hell of a start. You've already got sent to the shadow band realm, and you survived. So, what's it been like? How'd this all start?
And this was probably true for the most of the people. So I've always kind of heard about conspiracies, but I didn't really kind of connect with them as much. I would acknowledge them and I would look into them and stuff. But the thing that really woke me up, and probably the same for most people, was COVID. We saw that government overreach. We saw the fact that they're willing to put something completely experimental into not just older people's arms, your arm, my arm, and also children, and obviously now, hindsight, we can all see that more and more data is coming out that they just didn't know what they were doing. And this thing has been more harm than good. So that was a real big wake-up call for me. And it was the realization of, like, even if you have ego, even if you're worried about yourself, this is so much bigger than you. So I was never kind of the person to put myself in the public eye, or, trying to be an internet personality or whatever. But I felt like we're kind of in this point of, you've got no choice. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So that for me was the kind of the catalyst which put me here. And now it's just, all right, let's have these conversations. Let's hear each other's point of view. Let's try and actually make something a life worth living, kind of thing.
Yeah. So where were you in the world when all this kind of hit, when 2020 and COVID and all that? Were you in the UK?
Oh, mate, completely different life. I was actually in Thailand, and I was teaching scuba diving. I was a scuba diving instructor and absolutely loving life. Obviously, that all relies on tourism. So the moment COVID hit, that's just gone, right? And, I'm like 26 at this point. Just to paint a picture, I'm living like the best life. I'm as happy as can be, cloud nine. And then suddenly the money dries up and I'm forced to go to the UK, which even when it was good, it was still like one of the most depressing countries in the world. But, so forced back, you're cloud nine. Now you're forced back to the UK. It's cold. You're in lockdown. Oh, mate, it was terrible. So maybe I was more affected than most. But yeah, just trying to get my head around that. And I said to myself, the moment lockdown eases up, I'm going to go leave the country again. And so I've been living in Thailand kind of past couple of years.
What even brought you there? I've been to Thailand. I have one hell of a story when it comes to Thailand. I was a young, stupid sailor, and my captain decided to stop off in Patong Beach, Thailand. Yes, and we had what we called liberty, and I had what is called alcoholism. and I spent a little too much time in Thailand, and I missed getting back on the boat. So I am familiar with Thailand. But how'd you get there?
Yeah, so I had the good experience in the scuba diving when I was there when I was younger, but originally it was just the cost of living in the UK is just ridiculous. And I had a decent job. You know, I could get by and then still enjoy my life, but all of my friends, everyone around me, the quality of life just isn't there. So I kind of made the decision, like it wasn't really working out for me. Now it's almost different. Like I don't really kind of enjoy my life in the way I used to anymore. I don't drink, I don't go out or anything, but a lot of my drive is for this show, and it's having these conversations because we are seeing that the UK is like completely totalitarian. They arrest 12,000 people every single year for what you say online. If I was to do this show in the UK, I can almost guarantee you that I'll be arrested. So now it's this position of actually, you know, it's not necessarily that it's Thailand. It's just the fact that I'm outside of the UK and I can continue having these conversations. That's the real drive right now.
Do you fear that that's going to dry up there as well?
As in Thailand?
Thailand, yeah, worldwide. Are you fearful of a new world order or a reset or tighter controls on the entire world?
Well, the big issue in the UK, I mean, many, you know, where do you begin? But one of the biggest ones is this digital ID, right? And Gareth Ike, he does a great piece on this, but the first part, like the way that they've completely won is when they link you to a bank account. And then obviously they have facial recognition. I think UK is one of the most surveyed countries in the world. So, you know, if you were apply that 12,000 arrests every single year, and then suddenly you had a system which linked that directly to your bank account, the moment you say something bad online, that's it. You're locked out of all of your money. You can't get by. If you have a family and kids, you can never speak freely again, essentially. We are starting to see that in Thailand too. They've, you know, this is how they get you, right? They make it as convenient as possible. So they have QR codes everywhere. And they've made it so easy to pay by QR, to pay all by digital, that it's just an inconvenience to use cash. It's, you know, you have to go to the ATM, you have to go to the bank, you have to take it out. So this is how they get you. You know, they've lulled people into this position where it's just so easy to do it that way. They don't want to go back to using cash, but then suddenly they've already started to do it where you need facial ID to now access your bank account. I think they did it in Vietnam, and unless you were willing to give up your biometrics, you would be completely locked out of your bank account. And it was something like 90 million people locked out of their bank accounts.
So yes, that sounds like so it sounds like it's definitely something that is spreading. Do you sort of also subscribe that there is a network, a secret society, cabal network that's behind the scenes of most of the major countries and governments?
It's hard to say how deep it runs. I don't believe in a one world government, but I do believe that there are factions of groups who do have these intentions of world domination. I believe that there's a lot of elites. You know, take the UK. We have the digital ID. We have the Blair Institute, which is now trying to push for it. He's partnered with billionaire Larry Ellison, who's been, I think at one point he was the richest man in the world, but he's always kind of back and forth, second richest, third richest, whatever. He owns Oracle. Oracle is an AI company, and they will be partnered with the Blair Institute to make the digital ID. This is the same kind of thing which would be doing facial recognition, you know, the biometrics, everything. So it will know exactly who everyone is at any given time. I think when it comes to the people who own the AIs, realistically, they could be put into this position where if you've got everyone's data, if you control the censorship and everything else, yeah, you are now essentially more powerful than governments. Governments are kind of bending the knee to you in a way. So I don't think that there is a one world or a new world order just yet, but I think with AI and stuff, they are developing the technologies to make that a very much real reality.
That is really interesting. Yeah, I can totally see that. And it seems like that's what the reset probably would be. This whole new switch from whatever monetary system, cash, whatever, fiat system to some sort of crypto seems to be the big switch. And I know I've heard things from the WEF talking about you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And I've started to sort of understand that that means we're going to all be living under some sort of subscription type of life. You're going to be renting this and you're going to be renting that, and you won't really own anything, but you'll be happy. What are your thoughts about
So
that?
they say.
Yeah, so they say.
Yeah. Well, I know the moment they posted that was the first time they got such a big kickback, and they removed it. They denied that was ever the intention. But yeah, you're right. It's this communist utopia, supposedly, that we are all completely equal. You don't even own a house. There's privatization's completely gone. That will be the end of freedom. And realistically, I think if anything like that actually comes in, we've already lost. So if there's ever a time for people to push back, now is that, because it's not just going to affect you and me. It will affect your kids. It will affect every future generation from here to come. Yeah.
You know, you're young. You've grown up with technology. I'm 53, but I had an Atari, so the very first video game system when I was 12, so I was addicted. And so do you think that that's kind of where this new world is taking us, is to this sort of artificial digital life? We're going to be living more digital, more 2D per se, inside of a screen, inside of a VR something. And that's just basically replacing a more natural, holistic life. Do you sort of see that divide?
Yeah, I mean, it's this kind of catch-22, because, for the people who don't use technology, you kind of do get left behind. And, technology is always advancing, which means software, how we work, how we make money, that's always got to advance as well. Otherwise, again, we live in a hyper-competitive market. If you don't play the game, you're going to lose. So, yeah, you still need to use these kind of things, which I think is almost unavoidable. But we can see, there are measures we could do to definitely help. We can see that it's having a huge negative effect on children. Depression, suicide rates have just skyrocketed. So if we were to take it away, at least from kids, we know that, okay, they can have at least a chance of a normal life. They can at least grow up without this addictive kind of social media mindset, which a lot of them get. Yeah, I feel there's definitely a balance going on, and right now we are way further in the negative kind of path of it. But it's almost, I don't think we could get rid of it completely, sadly.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because it's like I don't know a lot of people that are actually asking for more technology. I don't know if anybody's ever, like my friends or anybody I've ever knows, you know what, we really need to have some sort of artificial sentient type being, in my life. And is this just another way to somehow replace God in some way? You're now relying on some other source, and is that what we're just seeing? Because I know as I was growing up, most of my neighborhoods, most of the communities, most of the kids I grew up with, we all belonged to a church. We lived in a neighborhood where the church was. And there's not much of a connection there anymore, either with those types of people or with the message, let's say. What are your thoughts on that? Do you sort of see this as a spiritual war?
100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, I can speak for myself. Maybe it's the same for you too. I mean, we're all kind of on this pathway now. but I am a product of modernity. And with that, I was kind of on the cusp. I grew up without it, but as I'm in my early teens, that's when, I started getting all the smartphones and stuff. So it's good. I have a perspective from when we weren't actually completely consumed by all of that, which I'm so grateful for. But modernity kind of made it so that people went away from God. Before, we're in this paradigm where life was hard. We just prayed to make life a little bit easier. Then science comes along and it rapidly spreads around the world. So now everyone's in this position like, oh, I don't necessarily need God. I could just make my life better due to science. And in the short term, that was great. But as kind of we've progressed, the long term, we're seeing that, okay, people have stepped away from God. People are more individualistic. That also, like as a kind of byproduct, people tended to go a bit more nihilist. There's no point to life. We're all just atoms floating around in space. I could get a gun and shoot everyone in here. It doesn't matter, because there's no meaning to it all. And we've seen more and more people. I think this is what's led to people becoming depressed, suicide rates spiking, all of these things. I'm a product of modernity, so I'm not the most spiritual guy. I like to try and think in terms of real scenarios, science, and all the rest of it. But even for me, I can see there is so much value to God, so much value to religion. So I'm now in this kind of making my way more back to religion in a sense. And it is a spiritual war, you're right. I think ultimately that, there is forces beyond ourselves, much superior to ourselves, who are kind of making life harder. Maybe it's a test. Who knows?
Yeah, again, it leads me to, kind of growing up and being into technology and games and stuff like that. I really fell in love with the movie The Matrix and Neo and the whole story. I mean, I love it so much. It's almost like, in a way, it's like a weird, like, religious kind of thing for me. It kind of really was like one of the first times I could actually go, oh, that kind of makes sense to me. I could potentially be in some sort of video game type simulation. And so, like you said, am I just sort of here learning something or playing a game? Or have you ever thought about that? Is that kind of too outside the box?
Yeah, I mean, I think Elon, he was one of the first people to really push the idea that we're in a simulation. For a long time, I questioned that. I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, you could argue that God is the person who's wrote the code, right? So in that sense, you could say we're in a simulation. But no, I don't think that we are a computer program. I think we are real. I think this world is real. And it's interesting because The Matrix had a lot of parallels between that and Christianity. So Neo being the one, he represented Jesus. Cypher, who obviously portrays Neo, he's Judas. There's a lot of parallels. So it's interesting. But that movie in particular spoke to a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, it really did. Well, so
do you think we're in a simulation? How do you feel?
Yeah, it's really. I'm kind of like, I sort of feel like I'm in an undecided sort of realm right now. I kind of lean back and forth sometimes. I do feel like I may be more Gnostic Christian at the moment, where the Gnostics were. I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with the Gnostics at all?
To a point, yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of a rabbit hole, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and there were some texts that they were found. I can't remember what year they were, but they were found in Egypt, and they just had extra books apparently that were not put in the Bible, and so that's where I think a lot of these Gnostic ideas come from. But basically, there's early Christians that believed that we were in an evil sort of world, and their whole mission was to get out of it. And they saw Jesus as a messenger with knowledge to help them escape this prison world. And they had a name for the ruler called the Demiurge, and the evil spirits of that realm were called Archons. And so I've kind of been playing in that realm, also mixed with the Matrix and Christianity and Hinduism. And man, I mean, everything gets thrown in. So,
yeah, it's really interesting. I went down this because essentially it's the Demiurge who's created the universe. He's created time. And it's this being that wasn't created with a divine spark. So I forget the higher realm, but they see the demiurge as a mistake, and he wasn't completely divine, right? So they cast him aside, and in his complete loneliness, in his solitude, he creates the physical realm. He creates time. And then the people who do have a divine spark, the soul, he traps these people in his physical realm. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's because he has time, we're in this constant reincarnation loop. And that did speak to me a lot. And you're right. And Jesus was another one with the divine spark who has this knowledge on how to escape the physical. Because essentially, God is a higher being. And God is so pure that he is complete light. There is no physical mass to this being. So, and then because we are essentially part of this person, we are the same way. So, yeah, that whole theory is we shouldn't be having a physical body. But there's a lot of, Jesus still ties into it. And it's kind of the same message, isn't it? On the pathway to escaping this. It was interesting. I still don't know how I feel about it. But yeah, you're right. The Archons are the demons and all of this. It stayed with me for a long time. And yeah, I thought it was interesting. It's also interesting, too, that Plato does believe in the demiurge, but he sees it as more of a benevolent being rather than malevolent. And they see the demiurge. I mean, it's so weird how much this stuff overlaps, because they see the demiurge represented as Saturn. Saturn equals Satan. In Judaism, there's even a lot of for some parts of Judaism, they worship Saturn. There's Greek gods like Kronos, that was represented as Saturn too. Kronos was also the father of time. So there's all these parallels with so many different religions. It's crazy when you start reading into it.
Yeah, it really is. Have you ever spent any time getting into astrology or the stars or your zodiac signs, anything like that? I just found out recently I'm a double Sagittarius. Tomorrow's my birthday, so double Sagittarius, I think, means I'm just like super Sagittarius. So whatever the racial profile for that is, I have it.
It's hard to know. Like I say, I'm not the most spiritual guy. I think from a Christian point of view, I think they look at it as a bit of dark magic in a way, you know? Mm-hmm. I think there is some power to it. I will say that much. I think, there's a bit of a spectrum. You have, typically it's girls that love the horoscope stuff. And I think in some ways there's power to it, because people will read the horoscope and they'll say like, oh, I'm going to be aggressive today. Well, I guess that's me. And then they will change their personality to match that. So there's power there. There's also some kind of universal power to it. And I don't understand it. I think part of me feels that I just want to live my life regardless, and I'm almost better off not knowing this stuff, because, then you can kind of dictate your own path to a certain extent. How do you feel about it?
Well, I love to play outside the box, and I don't know if it's good or bad to play outside the box for too long. I guess probably for too long it is. But I don't know. Then I hear about monks or those folks that spend time just meditating and being in that realm of, no time, sort of just in the moment, let's say. So, I'm all over the place. So I really kind of feel that there's some sort of cosmic signature to each of us. And when you were talking about light, I think about like the stars and the celestial things as being lights. And it wouldn't surprise me if there isn't some sort of signature cosmic mixture recipe for those of us that incarnate into this realm. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I think we're never really going to know what's going on in the universe completely. And I think we have so many challenges just in our day-to-day lives. That's where my focus is. Not that we shouldn't explore other ideas, of course not. But I think I can see, like I was saying, like at a young age, I felt I was kind of forced into Christianity by my parents. So as a teenager, I completely rejected this. Now I'm seeing the value in it. Now I'm seeing that my life is improving. I'm improving as a person the more I go down that path. So in a sense, I guess I got my hands full with this. I mean, I'm a guy that always likes to keep learning, keep trying the next thing. So I'm sure once I kind of figured this out or understand this a little bit more, that would be my next path, maybe.
I agree. No, that's exactly been my progression too. Is that this, to me, that's the final frontier for me, is the celestial bodies and what's going on. Because I actually heard some quotes one time. I always say this. I could actually have it wrong, but I thought it was J.P. Morgan that said that millionaires don't study astrology, billionaires do, and that there's some sort of secrets to it. So, yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
I mean, it is interesting. But then, I've spoken to a few exorcists too. They regard it as black magic. They regard it as you're trying to understand God's plan, and actually you're never intended to. And, have you heard about the Talmud?
Yes, I have.
So highly controversial book, but this is from the Jews in Judaism. These are people who have rejected Christ. They don't see Christ as the Messiah, and they've continued their progression. And within the Talmud, there's this famous passage of how they resurrect Jesus Christ. And they try and dispute that, but I've seen so many famous rabbis now confirm that they are talking about the Christian Messiah, that it's just like, there's no way. I'm not going to buy that they're trying to like say, oh, no, it was another guy called Jesus. No. So within that book, they resurrect Jesus, and they say that Jesus is burning in excrement for all eternity. So it's also within this religion too, like you're saying, the J.P. Morgan quote, millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. I think there's a lot of dark magic, whether it be the necromancy that they see in the Talmud, whether it be the horoscopes, whether it be the life path numbers and all of this. I think we're trying to play God's game. And I don't necessarily know are we getting this from the divine source, or are we getting this from the Archons? Are they trying to leave us astray into sin, into evil, whatever it is? Like, yeah, you'll get rewarded for it, but at what cost?
Damn, that's good, Lewis. That's really good. I'm going to clip that. That's really good. Ooh, I like that. Well, that's why I love talking to everybody. This is probably why you're the same way. I get so much from just opening up and taking in information. And is it a lost art just having a conversation with human beings? And is that going to be less and less as AI takes over everything?
Sadly, yeah. Yeah, we're seeing that. I mean, we're seeing not just the depression rates in kids, but we're also seeing that they're less social. And it's not really surprising when you're glued to your phone all day. People are losing not just like the ability to have conversations, but kind of their humanity in the process. They're losing community, all of these kind of social pillars that we've relied on for so long. And it kind of leans into what you were saying earlier with like your own nothing can be happy. A big part of communism is you kind of destroy community. Everyone's an individual. So all of these social bonds, they're actually a way to trap you, But the reality is we need them. We have social bonds to our family, to our mums, to our dads, to our sisters, brothers, whatever, right? We've always used that to survive. And as a consequence, like we enjoy it. We love our families. So the own nothing, be happy mentality completely rejects that idea. And kids are now growing up not really learning how to be social, not really learning how to depend on one another. We are going that way, but I think because more and more people are waking up to this and realizing, like I say, going back into church, realizing the value of community, the value of morals, ethics, religion, whatever, I'm thinking that we're starting to see a sharp turn. And I think Gareth Ike said this as well. I think the greatest tool we have is being optimistic. So I used to, maybe it's the propaganda, it was just getting to me, but I used to have such a negative mindset. And you've already lost. Now it's completely flipped. And it's not just seeing it within myself. Maybe it's having these conversations. I'm talking to people who are also, they have that same spark. They have that hope for the future. And I think that is how we win ultimately.
Yeah. Well, you brought up the Talmud, and I know there's definitely a lot of talk in the world about who is actually running the world and who seems to, be sort of behind or have their hands in a lot of the things. And it always sort of points back to Israel. And it seems like Israel has their hands in just about every single government in the Western civilization. And I would assume, so can you explain to me the difference, or is there a difference to you between Zionism and being a Jew?
Yes. Yeah. So my understanding is basically any ethnically Jewish person can be a Zionist. You might not even be religious, but if you believe in a homeland for Jews, as in the ethnicity, essentially you're a Zionist. And, this is where it gets really tricky, because you couldn't, is it a cultural problem? Is it a religious problem? Is it an ethnic problem, like some people would say? I don't think it's the ethnic one. That doesn't make any sense to me. You can't help how you're born. But we do have ethnically Jewish people. Judaism is in a very unique place in the world. They have so many different setups in different countries. They are highly intelligent people, So and like it should be said too, they've also contributed a lot to society. So it's not like it's all bad. But at the same time, they will always have this affinity to Israel. And maybe that's because they've all been force-fed this idea that there was a Holocaust and they almost all got wiped out, so we need to band together. Maybe it's stuff like in Israel, they put everyone through a national service. Again, this is a great way to unite everyone. When you've had this military kind of not only programming you how to think, but it kind of treats everyone as equal pieces of shit, that unites people 100%. So they are probably more united than any other group, I think, in a lot of ways. There's still disputes and whatever, but when you compare it to other cultures, there's nothing else like it, I don't think. So, I don't know who is the overall, controlling things, but there is an issue with the culture. And because they put themselves in positions of power, whether that be, governments in the US, whether that's the UK, whatever, all around the world. And, not even talking about the whole finance control. I mean, that's a separate topic altogether, but equally as important. Because there's always going to be this love for Israel. When you have a Jewish person in the US in the Senate, are they actually acting on behalf of America, or are they acting on behalf of Israel? Are you going to be able to tell the difference? And, the counter to that is, okay, what about Israel? What do they have any ethnically white or a different ethnicity Christian people, for example, or Hindus? No, like their whole government is just purely either Jewish, ethnically or religiously. So they're in this unique position. And then, like I say, when you add on the kind of financial aspect, people like JP Morgan, the Rockefeller family, Rothschilds, the Warburgs, they essentially created like fiat money, which is backed by nothing. We're just literally printing money out of thin air right now. And like everyone's kind of waking up to this too. So we're in a very kind of weird time to be alive, that we're aware of it, but like, how do we break free of all these things? I think the US is in $1.4 trillion worth of debt. Like, what do you do about that?
I'm surprised it's not more, honestly. I'm surprised it's not a billion, trillion, jillion.
Oh, dude. Yeah, what do you do?
Unbelievable.
What do you do? But I guess I think that's, you've probably heard of the term America First. And this is where the MAGA movement has completely split. And it is people of that opinion. Like, we want people who are complete patriots of America. we don't want this dual loyalty. I think in the US too, you have this birthright where if you're born a ethnically Jewish person in America, then you can be flown to Israel. And a lot of these people, they fight for the IDF. If you're willing to put your life on the line for a different country, what does that say about your allegiance? For me, it's no difference to when ISIS was kicking off and you had all of these English Muslims, you had American Muslims, then go to the Middle East to then fight for ISIS. Maybe that's a more extreme comparison, but again, your allegiance is elsewhere. You don't actually care about the country you're in. And if these people are in a political position within that country they don't care about, are they now going to be sending money to the country they do care about? Are they going to be then kind of sabotaging what's going on in that country for the betterment of someone else? And I think we're seeing that movement cross over into the UK as well. I think we're seeing this in Canada, Australia. There is a realization of that stuff going on. So I think first and foremost, I can understand why nationalism has kind of erupted in the way it has,
You had some really great interviews recently with some white nationalists, and they were talking about just that it seems that the majority of the Western civilization is accepting immigrants from all around the world, yet other parts of the world aren't accepting immigration at all, and they feel that is what appears to be a coordinated attack. I don't know what invasion. I don't know what else to call it.
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. What else can it be? I mean, you were saying earlier about AI getting forced onto people, and people haven't really asked for that. It's no different to the mass immigration. I see the mass immigration as basically a tool used by these elites to try and destabilize countries. And the immigrants, in a way, they are innocent as well, because, they've been incentivized. They've been told, like, yeah, come along. We'll give you cash, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, we'll give you a home, we'll give you a house. All these people are coming over thinking that they're going to be welcomed with open arms. But obviously, more and more tension are building in these countries. No one is happy. They just arrive, and now I've spoken to a lot of them. They now are trapped, and they can't get back even if they wanted to. That's not the case for all of them. Obviously, a lot of them are choosing to stay in the country, regardless if they could go back or not. But I think the overall plan is to just create this sense of danger within all these societies, create panic, create unlawfulness. I don't necessarily subscribe to. I don't like Islam, but I don't think all of these problems stem from Islam. The issue with the grooming gangs, girls getting raped, and all of this. I think more of the issue is it's just young boys with nothing to do in a completely foreign country. I think that, and there are elements of Islam within it which can kind of lean to this kind of behavior, but I think it's mostly a young boy problem. And then when these young boys say they get arrested and then they get a slap on the wrist, they get 20 hours community service for something utterly disgusting, they then tell their friends, hey, come here. This country treats its own citizens like second-class citizens. Come down. I mean, we can literally do whatever we want, and they're going to give us money, and we get a house to live in. Yeah, come on down. So the word spreads quick. So not only are they told by the governments to come down, their friends are now inviting them down too. I've seen situations where, locals will stick up for girls getting attacked, and what do they get in return? The migrant might have a knife on them. They get stabbed. Their face is completely ruined and destroyed for doing the right thing. And then they're now in hospital only to find out that same person has just been released, And this isn't an isolated incident. This is happening all over Europe, all over the West. I see it as they are the tool to try and destabilize everything. The destabilization, once that's kind of happened, then the AI softwares, then the digital IDs, then they can fully come in. That's how I see it. Some people see the immigration as the bigger issue, and it is to a sense, because historically, once the demographics of a country changes, it's near enough set. It's very, very hard to change it back. So that's a historically very bad issue, versus this new technology, totalitarian, completely oppressive regime. I would still say I'm more scared of the AI, the digital IDs, than I am of the immigration.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, it's yeah, we're definitely under some sort of I don't know, spell, some sort of amnesia. Do you sort of subscribe that there's been advanced civilizations of the past? I know I'm really jumping around here, but do you kind of subscribe
No.
to an Atlantean, Anunnaki, a Tartarian, a Moorish empire? Have you sort of jumped into any of that?
I think our history. I mean, even history now. You know, when you see them trying to release the Epstein files and just everything's blacked out. So as people, we have we have a history of trying to cover up things, right? And we saw this in World War II. Every country has their own kind of story on the facts. History is obviously his story. The winners get to dictate how history will be remembered. So I do believe that we aren't privy to everything which happened, but it's almost like a rabbit hole you're never going to know the answer to. So part of me just kind of thinks like, well, why should I look into that if I'm never really going to get a concrete answer? But yeah, like I think the pyramids is the best example, right? Modern day equipment cannot build this, even if we tried. So yeah, I would say almost definitely that we had civilizations that were way above us in terms of technology and stuff like that. But again, are we ever going to know the answer? How do you feel about aliens? Are you subscribing like aliens exist and all the rest of it?
Yeah, I'm more of the extraterrestrial being like extra land. So I'm a big flat earth guy and I've got my math up there, but I believe I go out there. So I believe that extra land, extra territory, aliens could be something outside of our realm that we're not allowed to leave because of
As
the
in the
Antarctic Treaty.
right. I mean, that's interesting. So the whole ice wall, right? Do you
Mhm.
subscribe to that idea?
I do. Yeah. I've
Yeah.
gone yeah, I guess I was like most people. I got educated on the heliocentric model and never really made sense to me just in my head. It just was too
Mm.
much. I just couldn't understand it. And so when I started to learn about how people used to see this realm through a geocentric model where we're in the center and the sun goes around us and the moon goes around us like a clock, that made a lot more sense to me, and it also made me feel more connected to God in some way. I felt like, oh, I'm not on a ball flying through the freaking cosmos, spinning 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, in all these different directions. And so this is where I've now gone. I don't believe pretty much anything from history at all. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and it's easy to get to that conclusion because you get lied to so many times. You're like, well, why am I going to trust history books when I know all of this stuff is wrong? But maybe you'd be a good person to ask then, because I know they always try. I don't subscribe to flat Earth, but there's a lot of good arguments there for sure. But I remember seeing, didn't they take a bunch of explorers to the North Pole or the South Pole, and they
Yeah.
saw that the sun never set? So that kind of debunked a lot. Like, what
That
do you know
was
about that?
yeah, that's so my friend Flat Earth Dave, who you should definitely have him on your show. He is fantastic. He's probably the best presenter. His name is David Weiss. Guy hooked me up. He's probably one of the best presenters on his on the geocentric model where he has his own iPad right there. He pulls everything up. Everybody can kind of watch the videos. But he actually has a whole segment on debunking that. And
Mm.
so I think that's where everybody ends up getting. Everybody just ends up trying to debunk each other with like some new stuff. But for me, it's just more of a gut instinct kind of thing. It's just sort of how I've been around the world. I was a sailor. I was always on flat water. I just like little weird things like that. And then I like thinking of the world in a clock where it's moving east to west. It just makes sense to me. So once I know where north is, I kind of just feel like I'm positioned.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I remember years ago watching the documentary on it, and it did raise a lot of good arguments. I think one of them is the planes will always go east to west; they never go north or south.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, why is that the case? But yeah, it's one of them things. It's a rabbit hole, and I haven't quite gone down there yet.
I'm actually, really, I always say that I just lean more there than I do the ball in space, but I'm also open that this whole thing is a holographic freaking matrix, hollow earth, whatever the hell. I mean, because once you start getting into like some of the deeper like quantum physics stuff and you start looking at like, like reality doesn't actually become reality until it's observed. And then you start
Yeah,
thinking, well, then how do we observe things? Well, you get like information from the light into your eyes, then it goes in the back of your mind and then back out like a projector. Then you started thinking, okay, well, I can't really argue with anybody about anything.
it's crazy. Yeah, yeah, because I mean, we have all these professors, doctors now confirming exactly that. So, and it kind of all ties back to this question, okay, like what is consciousness? Because you're right, things behave differently with consciousness, and it adds weight to the whole argument of, if a tree falls in the middle of nowhere, no one's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound, and it's almost pointing at the fact that no, it might not. Without consciousness, things might not just exist in a way.
Yeah, and I've also heard it in like it's almost like a way for the computer to save data. It's like it doesn't appear until it needs to appear. Like being in a video game, you only go so far in the game until it can kind of render itself. Kind of
Yeah,
that kind of idea. Yeah, it's fun stuff. Consciousness to me is one of the most fascinating things. I think about consciousness all the time. What is it? Who am I? It's also something that I think about, like it seems to develop, like it fades in as a child. You're sort of growing and your consciousness fades with you. It kind of grows with you. And then as we sort of get older, it may actually start to fade away. And which kind of leads me to, do you sort of, you said you're a spiritual guy. Do you believe in an afterlife? Do you believe that there's something after this realm?
I do believe that, but I don't use that as an excuse to be who I am. Some people, with the reward of heaven, they'll try and make themselves a good person. But are you only being good to get the reward, or are you an actual good person? And I think that's another good thing. One of the teachings in Christianity is you're told to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. And whether people are religious or not, I mean, that's completely up to them. And there's a lot in Christianity which I don't agree with. A lot of seeing stuff that just doesn't make sense, but the values and the ethics do. And when I spend time with different groups of people, maybe I've just been lucky, but my general consensus is Christians are just really lovely people to be around. And if you believe in the idea that you need to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth, they do a pretty good job. So they are, just by believing in that doctrine, you are creating this atmosphere of people you genuinely want to be around, and an environment which is lovely to be in. So in that sense, I love the values which Christianity give you. Was that your question? Sorry, what
Yeah,
I kind of
no.
went on.
Well, it was beautiful. What you said was very beautiful. I was thinking a lot about that. That what it was like for me as a young person living in a world where my whole youth was surrounded by Christians and of all different colors and all, sizes and shapes and whatever. But it was just that Christian community was really special growing up in. And I don't know if I appreciated it when I had it growing up, but I yearn for it now. I hope that we can come back to a time where, we get rid of the wars and we get rid of the fake food and we get rid of the satanic messaging we're sending the kids through the movies. And and all that. How do you're a young person. I mean, I'm 53, so I think of you as young. I don't know how you feel, but you still have a lot of life ahead of you. Are you planning on having kids, family, or do you have a family? Where are you at in the world?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways to take that conversation, but I'm 31, and I would love to have kids. And I think if you have the mindset of, not being pronatal and stuff, I think that's a very depressing. And I don't. Anyone can choose however they want to live their life, but when I think about that, I think it's a very depressing mindset to have, because maybe there's a bit of self-hatred there. You hate yourself so much that you don't want to replicate. Or maybe you've let the propaganda get to you so much that you're just terrified of the future, whether that be global warming, whether that's COVID's going to evolve and eventually kill you. So don't have kids. And I think it all goes into the, this is when you can kind of get into the spiritual and the conspiracy realm, this whole depopulation theory. Whether it's true or not, we are seeing that unfold in real time. And I think there's been so many psy-ops to try and push people there. I think we talk about it a lot on the show too, which is feminism. Feminism, if you just looked at it in terms of demographics, if you looked at it in terms of population, has had a hugely negative effect. And it's pushed men and women further and further apart. The problem is because the more freedom, wealth, and power women have got, the sadder they've also become. It's the unhappiness paradox. We're seeing women on more antidepressants than ever before. We're seeing no one have kids in the West. We're seeing that relationships don't work. I think I saw a statistic where 70% of the time it's women who initiate the divorce. That jumps to 90% of the time if they're college educated. So I personally would love kids. I'd love a family, but it's been drilled into women so hard that if you have a kid, what happens if he leaves you? If you have a kid, your career's over, and all these things, all these like negative connotations has been drilled into them. And I think a lot of women are just terrified of that idea. You're going to lose your personal freedom. You're going to lose this. You're going to lose that. We fought for equality. So if you go and have a kid, if you become a mum, all of that hard work is wasted. And they're kind of guilt tripped into that mentality. And sadly, the end result is they're not happy as people, and I think that's true. I mean, what we're seeing as well, and this is, a lot of people hate having these conversations because it's like, by having this, I'm creating the divide. But at the same time, we're seeing these groups of women, and these groups are getting huge now. They're getting way bigger and bigger every single year. And it's women mourning over the fact that they didn't have kids. And obviously they can't turn back time. They're now stuck in this position for the rest of their lives. They don't have the same attention that they were getting when they were younger. They can't find the right man. For me, that is heartbreaking. And not only is it heartbreaking to the woman, it's heartbreaking to society too. If we don't have children, if we don't replicate ourselves, society starts to fall apart. We're in this point now when I'm older, there won't be enough labor to go around in terms of looking after people, maintaining society, all of the things that we kind of take for granted right now, all of that's kind of going to be gone. People might look to the fact like, oh yeah, but AI, robots are going to replace us. It's not a problem. Are you so sure? You're going to hedge all your bets on something that might happen? Or do we just stick to the thing which has always worked, that we've always relied on, which is having kids? You could also point to the fact that nothing else in the animal kingdom doesn't replicate. Everything has kids. Everything procreates. It's just natural to our being. And they try and say that, oh no, we're so much more advanced. We've evolved past that. Have we? At the end of the day, we're still pretty tribalistic. We still do all the things that all of these other creatures do. Why is it that kids is such an impossible thing to kind of comprehend nowadays?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. It's I feel like it's been a coordinated attack. I've gone down so many rabbit holes. I found a book. Did you ever hear about the book called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion?
No, tell me more.
Okay, well, it's a book that you can't really talk about apparently, but but it's a book out there that basically it almost reads as a playbook, and it's over 120 years old, and it basically talks about how to destruct societies, and it is, whether it's fictitious or it's Russian propaganda, which I think is the narrative.
Right.
This is definitely what has happened, just like as what you said, and that's kind of where I am as a conspiracy theorist. I think it's very logical to look at the result of things and then go, was this intentional? Like, that's all I do now. And it's just led me down to more and more, uncovered truths, really. So,
Yeah.
what,
Yeah. Exactly.
what
Well, I
do
was
you
going to
have?
say,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
like, whether or not this is intentional, it's society is falling apart all around us. So, if you were to give everything grace and it just happened to land in this, they're doing it in a pretty good way. Like in terms of how you destroy a society, if this is all a coincidence, that is some coincidence.
I agree. Do you have any fun guests coming up, or anything that you're gonna publish anytime soon?
It's been really good, to be fair, and reaching out to all these people, influencers or people who I have kind of dreamed of meeting one day. It's been really, really heartening to have these people just very, very humble and say, yeah, let's have these talks, and really exciting, to be honest. But like I did a show the other day of a survivor of the USS Liberty, and even though this is more your history than mine, it really leans into how false flags are used. And this is the story of Israel attacking a US warship, basically with the intention of killing all these men. And this is during like 1967. There's a 6-day war, and it's like Syria, Egypt, I think Jordan. They're all attacking Israel at the same time. They were going to use these men. The US government sent them there. They were going to use them as cannon fodder. They get killed. And then that would have been the reason, like, all right, guys, they've just killed our men. We're going all out. Send the troops.
USS
That would have kicked off
Liberty.
World War III. And, he talks through the story, and it's incredible. It's incredible. And he puts it all down to God, why he's still here. But it's so obvious, like, how they were trying to play that. It then kind of leans into, the whole 9/11 stuff has become so much more normalized to talk about. People are starting to entertain the idea, okay, maybe there is something going on there. Maybe the official story doesn't quite add up. But yeah, so that was good. There was also, like, again, this is more your history, but it's going into the UK too. The whole idea of white guilt and all the rest of it.
Oh yeah.
One of, like, for us, they will always bring back the idea of colonization. And I've spoke to some of these, the Eric guy, who is the white only community in the US. He brings up the fact that actually, the cultures that we colonized, it wasn't all good, of course not. But the cultures that we did colonized, they were actually more economically advanced, more structurally advanced. They had better infrastructure. And they went on to become much greater nations than the ones that we either just left early or the ones that we didn't touch at all. That was really interesting. And with the whole white guilt thing, you guys, I know you get slavery, right? They always bring up how the white people were the slave masters and stuff. I just spoke to a guy, and he was saying that actually the Pirates of the Caribbean were most likely Jewish. There's Greenbeard, right? This blew my mind, right?
I know.
Greenbeard.
I'm learning this all too. I heard about Christopher Columbus just like 3 weeks ago.
Christopher Columbus being a Jew. Yeah. Insane. And he was, if you look at the dates, so it's 1492 when Jews are expelled from Spain. You then go to, all right, when did Christopher Columbus discover America? 1492, the exact same year. You then go to, so they basically figure out in the currents in the ocean, the
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Oh boy.
The
The streams.
transatlantic,
Yeah, the Gulf streams.
the Gulf Stream. Thank you,
Yes.
the Gulf Stream. So they basically discovered the Gulf Stream, and that Gulf Stream was now this highway used from the Africa, from Europe, all the way to the America, and it was kind of the Jewish people that kept onto it. It was a secret, you know. They have this superhighway which gets all to them. And then when you look at, I was saying, like, so Greenbeard, right? You look at his pirate flag, and I'm not even joking. There is a Star of David on the flag. People can look this up. Please do.
I am going to write this up. This is going to be so good. Greenbeard?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, I'm
Well,
pretty sure
then,
Greenbeard.
well, isn't the Pirates of Caribbean also this where Jeffrey Epstein and all of these islands are? That's kind of like the whole Caribbean network of money laundering and
Well, yeah. So you have all of these ships, which now are privy to this superhighway. They are all these crypto Jews. Crypto Jews, because of the time, because anti-Semitism was so big, obviously they're getting kicked out of all these countries in Europe. They had to pretend that they were Catholics in order to survive. So they would preach the Bible and stuff, but deep down they're secretly Jewish, right? It's understandable. That was just the norm in the time, right? Christopher Columbus too was this crypto Jew. And again, they have this superhighway. You then go into, okay, who were all the pirates? The Pirates of the Caribbean, they were Jewish. They were the people who were mostly running all these slaves back and forth. They were the transatlantic slave traders. And then when you go into who were the owners when the US was set up, Florida was essentially your first state,
yes.
And then it just grew from there. You have it's always this it was the white Southerners who were the slave traders. It seems like that's not the case. It seems like actually a lot of these slave traders were Jewish. And then even when you look at Judaism, the religion, they allow for slavery. It was the British. It was we were more subscribed to Christianity. It was the British who actually decided to be the first people to get rid of slaves at the cost of a lot of money and at the cost of a lot of blood. And it seems that history has been completely twisted. I mean, you were talking about J.D. Rockefeller too. There's this Jackal Island. You heard about that?
Yes. Yeah. But this is the
Jekyll.
Federal Reserve stuff. Is that right? In Georgia,
Yes.
off the
Yeah. So you have the Warburg family, and that's where J.D. Rockefeller family, they had a place there. You had like basically all of the powerful families, they were based there. They made, like you say, that's where the Federal Reserve, they had the secret meetings to plan the Federal Reserve. But on top of that, oh man, I completely lost my train of thought. No.
Well, you're on it. You're definitely on it, because that is ultimately that's what we're linking all of these sort of I don't know, catastrophes. We can go back to the Titanic. We can go to 9/11. We could go to just about USS Liberty. You can make a tie. You can JFK to Israel to Mossad to some sort of, I don't know. There's
Jewish
something
elites,
going on.
Zionists.
Yeah, Jewish elites.
Yeah.
And it looks
exactly.
like it's now moved into the technocracy now. That seems to be, like you were mentioning before, with Larry Ellison and Zuckerberg and, you know.
Well, yeah, exactly. And like never before this is where it's kind of pretty scary, because you've never had all your money digital. It's always been a physical commodity, whether that be actual products, whether that be, your cattle, whatever. But because it's now digital, that will give absolute power to whoever's controlling that. Whoever's writing the program, the algorithms, they own you, right? So you can't really have a revolution or a resistance if, now you can't put fuel in your car. Now you can't eat. Now you're not going to be able to feed your family. How can you fight that? So that, for me, that is the greatest evil. And that's the thing that needs to be resisted. But you're right. It's when you start seeing all these ties, all these links to, these certain elites, it paints a picture for sure.
Yeah. Well, you really hit me hard there when you said that all of the money would be digital. All of the money would be in this 2D world. It would not be a physical thing anymore. We basically are, that's kind of what I've been getting to, is just that there's this artificial layer and there's this natural layer, and we are just really rushing to this artificial, and I don't know if anybody's asked for it, but we're getting it. So we are the resistance, it seems.
Yeah, or exactly. And you know, the whole adage of wars aren't won with men, they're won with ideas. So this is how it starts realistically. You need to normalize the narrative that yes, this thing is evil. Yes, it's going to be completely draconian, totalitarian. People need to resist this at all costs. And I think right now we're in this kind of race. Either people wake the fuck up and realize what's going on, or we have to accept our fate. So that's, the more people who have these conversations, the better. But by changing that narrative, by like shocking people into waking the fuck up, that's what's going to save us.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Well, Lewis, man, I want to continue this down the road. You are somebody that is a wealth of information. You've heard, I mean, more perspectives than I can think of many people I know. So I definitely want to tap into your mind and your perspective down the road again. So I respect your time, and I appreciate the time. So,
yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a great chat. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, and I'll catch up with all of you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.